Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be doing a fresh install of Klipper on an Ender 3 V2, and this is the most current version, so this is February 2024. We're going to need a couple of items to do this successfully. You're going to need to have a Raspberry Pi. In today's example, we're going to be installing it on a Raspberry Pi 3B+. You're also going to need an 8 GB or greater SD card and a micro USB to USB cable. And this needs to be a cable that also handles data. So it can't be a charge only cable. And we'll be able to determine that a little bit later in the install. But I'll link all the necessary parts in the video description if you guys want to pick those up prior to doing this installation. The reason that we're doing this is if you have a older version of a Klipper install that you did about 6 months ago, I would say, then updating to the most recent Klipper software will break the MCU compatibility with that upgraded version. So the only way to remedy this is a fresh install, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to help you guys out that are thinking about getting into Klipper, having the most up-to-date guide. I'll make the PDF available in the video description as well. So before we get started, guys, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, turn on your notification bell, and leave me some comments. I love reading the comments and do my best to get back to you guys as soon as I see them. All right, so let's open up the guide here. We're also going to need to install the Raspberry Pi imager. To do that, there's a link in the document. Right under the preparation, you can click on download. It'll take you to this same site that I had open here. Select the appropriate operating system. You can have it for Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. In today's example, we're going to be installing it on Windows. I've already downloaded and installed it, so we're going to continue on to the next step, and that's opening the imager. So let's navigate over to page 2. And we're going to have to make a few selections here. The first thing is going to be selecting the device we're going to be installing it on. As I previously mentioned, we're going to be using a Raspberry Pi 3B+. Let's select that one. On page 3, we're going to select Choose OS. Scroll down until you find Other Specific Purpose OS. Click it. And then we want to select 3D printing. Moving on to page 4, we're going to be installing Mainsail OS. Select that. Depending on the selection that you made of your Raspberry Pi device, this may be either a 64-bit or 32-bit version that would appear here in this window. In our case, it's a multi-core processor, so we'll be using the 64-bit installation. Click that. Moving to page 5, select storage. Select your micro SD card. Click next. And on page 6, we're going to have to make some edits to this OS install. Click Edit Settings. And in this field, we're going to enter the host name. And I suggest picking a host name that's easy for you to remember. In my case, I'm going to be installing this on an Ender 3 V2. So I'm just going to call the host name Ender 3 V2. You also want to check the box that says set username and password, I'm going to keep the default Raspberry Pi username of PI, and then I'm going to select my own password. Check the box that says configure wireless LAN, put in your SSID, put in your wireless network password. Select your wireless LAN country. The default is Great Britain. This is not necessary to change, but if you want to have the appropriate country for your wireless LAN, then select the one that's appropriate for your country. I want to set my local time zone. In my case, I'm in Central Time. Once you're done with that, we're going to click on Services. Check the box that says Enable SSH. Leave Use Password Authentication. Select the next options. And if you want it to play a sound when it's done, go ahead and check this box. Or eject the media when finished, go ahead and select that one. And I'm not sure what Enable Telemetry does, but I normally don't check any of these boxes, so I'm just going to leave mine blank. Once you're done, click Save. Next thing we want to do is click on Yes to apply these customizations. You're going to get prompted with a warning telling you that the SD card is going to be erased, so make sure that you get anything that you want on the SD card into a safe location on your computer. Go ahead and select Yes. And this will take some time to complete. So now would be a good opportunity to go and get a cold beverage or take a bathroom break. If you get any pop-ups like this, go ahead and click the X and just close that window out. You may get several pop-ups during the course of this installation. Just continue to click X. In the event that you get a pop-up box that says something like unable to partition your SD card, that just means that your SD card needs to be formatted prior to this. Normally this program will format it, but if you had a previous version of Klipper on an SD card, then you may have to format it using Windows. If you did have to do that, select NTFS 496 allocation, give the SD card a name, and click Quick Format. In this case, we didn't have to do that, so we don't have to worry about that. Once it's complete, go ahead and click Continue. And let's take the SD card out of the computer. All right, now I'm going to just take the SD card and install it in the Raspberry Pi. Turn on the printer. And power up your Raspberry Pi. Another program that you can use is the Wireless Network Watcher. So if you're following along with the guide on page 10, there is a link. You can click on that and download it. I already have it, so I'm just going to open mine up. Usually takes about 5 minutes to expand the image. How we can check it is to go to our browser, open a new tab, and what you want to type in the tab here is the host name that you gave the printer when you were setting up the Raspberry Pi imager. In our case, it was Ender 3 V2. Press enter. And you're going to get this Moonraker disconnected until it fully boots up. Right now it's still creating the image file on the Raspberry Pi, but once it's completely expanded, it will connect. All right. Okay, so we're logged in, but we have errors. So let's take care of those errors. Let's open up our document. And first thing we need to do is to update Klipper. So we're going to click on this wrench icon here. Get this thing out of the way. Scroll down to the update manager. And you want to click this check for updates refresh icon. All right, once our update is complete, we're going to select update all components. And you're going to get this yellow boxes. Okay, I understand the risk. Go ahead. All right, and once we get this connection failed, that means the update is complete. So we're just going to click on try again, and it's going to reconnect. Click close. All right, so now let's go back to the document. Now let's scroll down to flashing the control board. And the software that we're going to need for this is PuTTY. And we're also going to need another piece of software called WinSCP. The links for both of those are in this document on page 11. So you can just click on the link. It'll take you right to the website, download the software, and you're good to go. I'm also going to include all the software in a zip file in the video description. That way, if anything changes with the software, you guys will have the original software that this tutorial was made from. So all of the settings and steps are going to match with the software version that's currently available. So let me go ahead and open PuTTY. All right, so to log into PuTTY, we're going to put in our host name. So if you guys remember from earlier, it's Ender 3 V2. That's what I named mine. Press the Enter key. And the first time that you run this, you're going to get this PuTTY security alert, server host, yada, yada, yada. This is because there hasn't been any connection done between the computer and the Raspberry Pi. So you're going to get this prompt. Just go ahead and click yes. Type in your username. In our case, we left the stock username of PI. Type in your password. Press the enter key. And once we're logged in here, on page 12, we're going to change directory. So you can highlight each of these sections here. Right click on it to copy. Right click in PuTTY. We'll paste it. Press the enter key. And I'm going to continue step by step. Get the next one. Paste, enter. And in this section, we're going to have to make some changes to the current configuration. To do that, you're going to go to the down arrow, right arrow, scroll down to where it says STM microcontroller, microelectronics STM32. Press the space bar to select it. It picked up by default the proper processor model. And just for kicks, let me see what other processors they have here. Okay, pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna escape to go back. Arrow down, right arrow, and we need to select 28 KIB bootloader. And this is assuming you have a 4.2.2 control board in your printer. There are some new versions of control boards for the current Ender 3 V2 that has a different chip, and this guide will not work for that. You're just going to have to go into the Discord server and find out what the appropriate settings are for that particular chip. But in this case, we have an STM32 chip. Press the space bar to select 28 KIB bootloader. Down arrow, right arrow. We want to select serial on USART PA10/PA9. Press the space bar to select it. Q to quit. Y to save. And then we're going to select the next line. Copy, paste, enter. And this is going to create our bin file that we're going to flash to the printer. Okay, once we're back at a prompt, we're going to select this next line. Now, this next line is going to determine whether or not we have a good connection between the Raspberry Pi and the control board. Right click on this, copy, paste it into PuTTY, press enter, and you're going to get something like this. So if this says something like directory not found or file not found, that means that there's something wrong with the USB cable. Either it's a charge only cable, it's not plugged in properly, or the cable is defective. And I've had brand new cables not work out of the package. So it's a good idea if you have a couple of these cables. That way, if you have an issue with one, you can use another. I'm going to go ahead and copy this line. So I'm going to highlight it. Control C on the keyboard to copy it. And I'm going to paste this in Notepad. I'm going to keep this as a reference just in case I need it when we get into the printer.cfg. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. On page 13, we're going to copy the next line. Sudo apt update. So we're going to copy, right click, enter. It's going to ask us for the Raspberry Pi password again. Type it in. Press enter. Once that's complete, let's select the next line. Right click to copy, paste, enter. Next line, copy, paste, enter. Next line, paste, enter. All right, moving on to page 14. Now this step is optional, but I'm going to go ahead and install it now because I do plan to use the ADXL 345 accelerometer. To do that, okay, we're already in the Klipper directory, so we can skip this first one. Let's go to the second line here. Copy, paste, enter. Next line, copy, paste, enter. Next line, we're already in the Klipper directory, so we don't need to use this first line. Let's go to the next one. Copy, paste, enter. And for this, we're going to have to change this next line. So arrow down, arrow right, down arrow to Linux process. Press the spacebar to select it. Q to quit. Y to save. And then we're at the bottom of page 14. We're going to copy this next line here. Sudo service Klipper stop. Copy. Paste. Enter. Hit the next one, copy, paste, enter. Okay, so now next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this last line. We're at the bottom of page 14. Copy, paste, enter. Top of page 15. We're gonna copy this next line. And we're already in the Klipper directory, so we don't need to do anything else. Paste, enter. We're gonna arrow down to interface options, press enter. Arrow down to I4 SPI, press enter. Would you like to enable it? Press enter again, yes. Enabled, press enter again for OK. Tab again to finish, press enter. And we're done with this so far. Okay, next thing we need to do is to flash the printer. So to do that, we're going to use another program. And I think for now we're done with putty. So let's go ahead and exit out of putty. Just type in exit, EXIT, press enter. And we're going to need another program here. It's called WinSCP. So let me find that thing here. And what this program is going to allow us to do is to bring that bin file over from Klipper to our computer. Right here. Let's get this thing out of the way. Okay, so we need to log in. This is going to be a new login. So you're going to select this top thing where it says new site. Leave the default file protocol to SFTP. And the host name is, in our case, it's Ender3v2. Press enter. You're going to get this pop-up because this is the first time that we connect using WinSCP. Click yes. Type in the Pi username, PI. Click OK. Password. Enter. And you want to navigate over to your Klipper folder. Double click it. Double click on where it says out. And we want to bring this file over. Or actually, we could just drag it over. Let me delete this one that I have over here. Delete that one. Drag your file over and drop it wherever it is that you want to put it. In my case, I made a folder called Klipper bin files. Once you have it here, get a 8 gigabyte or better SD card. And I'm going to load this one in here. All right, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to delete this Klipper bin file that I got in here. And you may want to format this SD card. I'm going to go ahead and format it. So I'm just going to right click on it. Format. FAT32 is okay for the file system. Allocation, unit size, 4096. Give it a label if you want. In this case, it's going to be Ender3v2. Leave quick format. Click start. Okay. Once that's done, let's go over to where we downloaded our file. In my case, it's right click, send it to the SD card. verify that it's in the SD card. And what's a good idea is to rename this. So I'm going to rename this Klipper Ender 3 V2. And if you want, if you've done this multiple times, you may also include the date. So I'm going to put 2/13/2024. Press the enter key. And now I'm going to take it out of the computer, put it in the printer, and turn the printer on. Switch the printer back on. And we're done with WinSCP, so we can close this. Yes, we want to terminate the session. Let's go back to our Klipper session. And we're going to save and restart, firmware restart. Okay, so now we got this final error. So this one is essentially telling us that we need to have some kind of a printer.cfg file. If you notice in this list here that we have, this file is not listed in here. So what we're going to do is, in my case, I already had Klipper configured on this printer before. So I'm just going to upload my printer.cfg, and I'll make my printer.cfg available in the video description as well. If you guys want to take a look at it. But remember, it's for an Ender 3 V2. And once you have it uploaded, you need to rename this. So I'm going to right click on it, rename. And you just want it to only say printer.cfg. So I'm going to take all this stuff off here. Back this up. Click on rename. And then I'm going to firmware restart. And let's see. Set over to our dashboard. And there we go. All right, so let me take you guys over to the printer. All right, guys, so let's home this thing. All right, that's it. Guys, if this is a new installation for you, moving on to page 17 will help you configure your printer. One thing that's different between Klipper and Marlin-based firmware is the way that you express the negative Z offset. Klipper does not use negative numbers. So in Marlin, if you had a negative Z offset of 0.94, you would enter this number into Klipper as just 0.94, leaving off the minus sign. Klipper knows what to do when you enter this number into the Z offset field. On page 18, there's the process for calibrating the probe Z offset. Along with the new menus that will pop up as a result to upgrading to the latest version of Klipper. One thing that we recommend are the adjustable bed probes. What this will allow you to do is dial in your Z offset. Marlin and Klipper both react negatively to large Z offsets because the accuracy of the bed mesh created by Klipper is determined by the measurements taken by the bed probe. So if the bed probe takes one measurement and records that to the bed mesh, So what I'm trying to say is basically this. If you have a probe measurement that taken by the probe of point 10, right? So the bed is 0.10 either high or low. It doesn't account for in that measurement the difference in the Z offset. So the Z offset is essentially the space between the nozzle and the bed probe when it triggers. So if you have a Z offset that is a larger number, let's take for example the previous value of of a negative 0.94 Z offset, that 0.94 does not get added to the bed mesh. Klipper doesn't do this automatically, and neither does Marlin. So that means that that particular probe point on your bed, the machine thinks it's a 0.1, but in actuality, it's a 1.04 because you have that 0.1 measurement that Klipper took plus the difference in the Z offset. So this makes that particular point inaccurate when it goes to put down filament. It's going to be putting down the filament way too high. Your model will lift at that spot. And anywhere along your bed, you're going to have this same problem. What we found through testing is that minimizing this Z offset to a number between 0.25 and 0.50 millimeters will result in the most accurate bed mesh. That leaves you a little bit of safety margin underneath the nozzle for molten filament to go during homing. So when you initially home the printer, if the nozzle is preheated, and you can do this by adding that into the start G code, then when it homes, any residue that's underneath the bottom of the nozzle from the previous print will be in a softened state, and it will just mush as it does its initial homing. So this will give that molten filament a place to go in that little gap, and that keeps the nozzle from contacting the bed before the bed probe is triggered. We have these available currently at Amazon. I'll leave links in the document as well as in the video description. This for us has been a real game changer. It makes perfectly accurate meshes every time when you dial in your Z offset this way. Also, setting your Z offset is a piece of cake compared to the way it was done before because you essentially dial it in. Thanks to Doc for leaving our first review on Amazon back in September 23. On page 20, we have the bed mesh calibration. This walks you through the steps of creating your bed mesh. On page 22, there's the review on how to enter the bed mesh routine into your Cura Start G code. I've also included my complete Start G code in the document. That way you guys can look at it. And if you have an Ender 3 V2 that has a similar setup to mine, try this Start G code and let me know what you think. On page 23, how to enable Mainsail connection with Cura. This will eliminate the need to have to download the files to Mainsail using the web OS. It'll be done automatically. So instead of saving to a file and then uploading to Mainsail Klipper, you just select upload to Klipper and the print starts automatically. So this will show you exactly how to do that. On page 24, how to PID tune your printer. Follow these steps, PID tune the heater and then the bed. On page 26, you have how to set your rotation distance. In Klipper, it's a little bit different. Coming from Marlin, Marlin uses E-steps. to determine the correct flow rate settings for your extruder gear setup. In Klipper, it's rotation distance. There's a way to convert it in this document here on page 26. We'll show you exactly how to do that. On page 28, I show you how to wire the ADXL 345, which is the accelerometer, to get the values for input shaping into Klipper on your Raspberry Pi. How to mount it to the minimalist fan bracket. And the minimalist fan bracket has a mounting point already for this, and also includes an STL file to mount it to the y-axis. I'll leave links to this STL file also in the video description. You also have the software installation for Klipper. So these are the entries that are going to be made in Klipper on page 29. Heading over to page 30, we have how to wire the accelerometer to a Big Tree Tech CB1 and Pi 4B adapter, along with the entries that need to be made into the configurator file and the entries that need to be made into the printer.cfg. On page 31, the process for measuring resonance for X and Y. On page 32, the process for tuning pressure advance. On page 33, it's an overview of our heat dissipating housing. We found that to minimize or eliminate skipped steps, it's important to reduce heat, and the Ender 3 V2, Ender 3 Neo are plagued with heat-soaked Y stepper motors, and this is because the Y stepper motor is mounted to a plastic housing. This plastic housing acts as an insulator and keeps the stepper motor from transferring its heat away from the stepper motor into some form of a heat sink. So not only are you getting the benefits of a housing that acts like a heat sink, but it also transfers excessive heat to the larger 40x40 extrusion. We have samples here on page 33, along with a link of where to purchase on Amazon. They're currently available. We have the first run that just arrived, more to follow. So inventory is limited right now. If you guys act on this quickly, you'll be able to get one. Thanks, Brian, for leaving us our first review on Amazon. On page 34, thank you, Doug, for helping us for setting the V reference voltages. This, combined with the heat dissipating housing, gets your stepper motor to just barely warm during a long print. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, turn on your notification bell, and leave me some comments. I love reading the comments and do my best to get back to you guys as soon as possible. This video is a wrap. Thanks for hanging in till the end. See you in the next one.